When we were placing dimensions in the model, and we've been working on this level 1, the working view, or level 2, the working view, or the ceiling plans, not construction document views, but these. This is us driving the geometry, and the whole idea is that you can pick an object, choose the temporary dimension and change it. And in the absence of any other constraints, I could go in here and say, well, let's make it 10 feet and have the actual wall move and have the things on the wall moved. I'm going to do a Control-Z to go back. The kind of issue you might run into would be if you, let's say I'm going to take another dimension here and say I want to show from the tab face of this to the face of this a dimension, and if that is locked, or if I edit it, so let me do this. If I pick that and I said change that dimension to 10, I would be okay because this is not locked and I can move that and make a change. But if, for example, someone had said, let's lock that, and then I try and I change this dimension. So if I pick this and then I go back up there and I try and say 10, Revit's going to bark at me because there's a constraint that shows you where it is that is stopping me moving this, because it's also got another instruction that says that these should be a set distance apart. So I'm going to hit cancel. So that was the reason why when you're doing single development dimensions to drive the geometry, it's important either not to lock it, or if you do remove it, to make sure you don't leave any invisible constraints between objects. So the other thing that's important to know is that when you want to edit that, you pick the object it's attached to, not the piece of text. And then I could go in and change it here. Let me say I make it 11. I'll do a Control-Z to go back. If the objects that you are attached to are not displayed, for example, if I did a right click and I said hide and view that individual element, that wall, you see that the dimension that was attached to it is not displaying. So that becomes important when you have things like a situation like this. If I'm going to put a dimension string in here, and I got rid of the grid lines that were in the shell, and I'm just using the ones that were in the interior. So I opened the shell and I deleted the dimensions that were there, and I'm just leaving these. So what I'm getting at here is that sometimes somebody will turn off something that has a dimension attached to it. So if I said hide in the view, just that one grid, I don't see any of the dimensions that are attached to it. So that's the way Revit works. It's the way it's intended to work. But the other thing that's when it gets to wanting to do construction documents in here, the idea would be that maybe when we're dimensioning things, we don't want to, let's see if I can find a good example here. Say down in this room, maybe when we do this align dimension, is we don't want to use these settings where we are picking wall center lines by default and then we're doing individual picks. Maybe what we want to do is say that we want any faces of the wall that would include, or actually let me do this first of all. Let me do just the multiple entire walls, so that when I pick a wall, I can get all of the dimensions off of it, right? By just picking and placing. Right? Also, if you pick a string of dimensions, you can say edit the witness lines, and what you can do is you can add So I'm going to find the end of this here, and I'll use the tab to get to it and add that to the actual dimension string. Oops, sorry, let me do that again. So I've got that selected. So I've got the dimension string. I'm saying edit the witness line. I'm actually adding an extra witness line, and then one more click, clear of this string to put this in here. In addition to that, you can move with those to get a leader. You can pick it up, drag this out to get to make it more readable here if you're doing this. And the other thing I wanted to show you is where we've got see here, we've got a curtain wall within the wall here. A little bit confusing when you do dimension and you're picking entire walls and you pick on this here. Revit doesn't recognize a nested curtain wall as something it should dimension to. It doesn't think of that as an opening. It thinks of it as a wall within a wall. And that is where it would be important to be able to click on the dimension and say, let me add some additional dimensions to it. So I'm going to pick the end here and where my curtain wall begins there. And then escape would be how I would get that information in there. I'll do it one more time here. So, and I might change the scale here just so we can see this a bit more clearly. If I went to like not a 16th, the other way, Jim. So, quarter inch like that. So I'm making this a little bit smaller. So if I pick a dimension line, I can say edit the witness line, and I could, if I've got curtain walls, I could go and put those extra dimensions into it, and my last click just needs to be well clear of the dimension string there. And the reason I'm not seeing that is just by coincidence, my cut plane for the view range is cutting through at a 4 foot height, but the mullions in my wall, if I just change this slightly, so I can say 4 feet 2 and apply. Yep, see that now I'm seeing the mullions. So it was slicing through, but not showing the mullions. That was because of the view depth. And then the other thing I wanted to show for example, if you pick a string of dimensions, you can peel off any individual dimension like that to relocate it where you want it to be in the string. And you can modify those by modifying where the witness line is. And it's actually kind of like that. If I move over there and tab to pick the string there, I can be moving the witness lines, and how far they extend in or out is that there too. So if I pick that, oops, sorry, not to do that. I want to do take that string and maybe move it out. Right. So whatever I'm dimensioning from here, I'm seeing the values on my string. So what I want to get at is everything, excuse me, everything under annotate, dimensions, spot heights. Right, that's the height of the floor, 1/2 an inch above the level. Things like slopes. If I had a slope, I don't have a slope there, so it's going to say no slope. these are just like hatch patterns, but in the detail lines I show there's something that you could be putting into the floor plan. So for example, if I wanted to indicate in the model that there was something overhead, I could be drawing with these detail lines here to indicate that. So sorry, detail line. So there should be a dialog box here. Hold on. Where I can choose the type of detail line. Why am I not seeing it? Oh, sorry, this is just closed on me. So down here is the, what type of line do I want to put in here? So if I wanted to do like in the floor plan, if I wanted to put in like an overhead line here, I'm going to just draw them in like this so you can see. And it would be something like that. And then I could be, I'm showing them as single annotation lines. And what I would be doing typically is only seeing it in the floor plan view and maybe lining it up with something that I know is above this. So let's imagine I had an overhang here of some sort in the ceiling. I would position those, or even dimension them out to say that's going to be at a certain point. I think it was 2 feet. So if I did 2 feet like that, I could be choosing to show stuff in my floor plan that corresponds to where my ceiling tiles are on the ceiling tile view, or the reflected ceiling plan view. So there, and maybe 2 feet there. So the next thing would be, I'm going to turn on my level 1 here. I've got some dimensions. Next thing would be, if I've already placed a bunch of dimensions or anything under the annotation tag, so I'll do like a spot elevation, what the height is in here for my finished floor. Not quite sure why that is. It not finished? Do I not have a floor in there? I think that must be the case. Let me put a floor in. Take that out now. So that floor's level 1, it's half an inch bigger. And now if I go back to my annotations, spot height. I'm seeing that that floor is half an inch above the level. So I'm getting the read out from this to confirm, what my height my floors are at. But what if anything that I've got here, any annotation lines, anything that I have drawn in a view, anything from this menu, in fact, right? So tags and all of this stuff. What if I want to take that to another view? So let me do it this way, where I'm going to take those, right click, and just show you, select all instances in this view, all of the room tags and stuff that I've already got in another view. Delete, take them out. And what I want to show is I can have multiple views for my sheet. So I can say duplicate this view. If I say with any detailing in it, I'm getting a copy of the detailing that's there. But if I just say duplicate, I'm getting just the geometry, not the details. I'll do this again. I'm going to go up to here and I'm going to go duplicate the view, and I'm saying just the building elements and not any dimensions or anything that's there. This could be, as a construction document, this might be furniture. And for example, this might be something like power and signal. The only reason I'm creating these is to show that when you've got dimensions or anything from the annotation tag here in any view, you can copy and paste to get that information into multiple other views. So here, for example, where I've got here, I could say right click, select all of those room tags, select, I've got them selected. I'm going to click on the spot elevation. I'm going to click on the dimension. I'm going to click on string of dimensions. I can go here where I can say under architecture tab, under modify tab, copy to the clipboard. Oh, come on. Copy to the clipboard. And then one of my pasting options is to say paste aligned to selected views. Right? So aligned to selected views comes back and says, well, which views? I want them to go into the furniture and the power and signal for my floor plan. So click on OK. Now if I look at these views, anything from the annotation tab that I had in any one view, I can get into here and here. Oh, I don't have the grid switched on, that's why. So let me do VG annotation. Oh, maybe I grids. There we go.
So it did actually copy these things to the other view. It's just because they were off, you couldn't see them. So VG, grids like that.